Tensions increase. The Gaspee attack happens in 1772 in Rhode Island. Colonists attacked and burnt a sandbarged British customs ship. King George wanted the colonists caught and tried in an English court. Think about it, guys. Very much like we would want somebody who bombed one of our ships, military ships, in American court. You know, the USS Cole in 2000. So out of this, of course, the colonists were outraged about this. They said, you know, hey, they can receive a fair trial in a colonial court, but that wasn't going to happen. Out of this, the Committees of Correspondence was set up, and now communication between the colonies was established, and like a Pony Express. So in 1773, May 10th, the Tea Act is passed, and this Tea Act is to try to help out the British East India Company because they were going bankrupt because of all of the taxes and colonists not buying their tea. So Parliament let them market their tea tax-free. However, colonial-made tea was still taxed. So this led to the Boston Tea Party. And this happens on December 16th, 1773. Colonists raided the British harbor. They threw 15,000 pounds of tea overboard, disguised as Indians, and it didn't fool anybody. The king knew who this was, and we want to think that Samuel Adams was there, but he actually had a prior engagement. He helped on the planning, but he was not at this event. So Parliament passes in response to the Tea Party. They passed the Coercive Acts, or as the colonists called them, Intolerable Acts. What does coerce mean? It means to force. That's the definition of coercive. It means to force somebody to do something. Well, even if you don't want to do it, you're going to be forced to do it. So Boston Harbor is going to be closed. I believe Boston Harbor stays closed until 1776, until they pay back the tea, which the price of the tea, 15,000 pounds of tea in 1773 was about $1 million. They suspended the basic civil liberties, civil rights in Boston, in that area. Basically, British military rule, the martial law, and they placed Bostonians on a curfew. So they also reinstated the Quartering Act, and Bostonians had to house British troops in their own house. So in response to this, you have the First Continental Congress of 1774. Now, by now, John Adams was a member of the Sons of Liberty, and he is going to represent Massachusetts in this First and the Second Continental Congress. They met in response to the Intolerable Acts. They drew up rights that demanded the king listen to them. King George laughed at them, and they promised to meet the next year if nothing come of it. So that leads you to the Second Continental Congress. They met the very next year. Colonists agreed to meet, and out of all of this, you get the Olive Branch Petition. You need to know what the Olive Branch Petition is. I'd put a star by it, and basically this was sent by the Continental Congress, and they wanted to return to the way things were, and they wanted the king to forgive them. And the king said, nah, you guys are in a state of rebellion. So he wanted the leaders of this Congress caught and hanged for treason. Now, out of this, Benjamin Franklin has a famous statement he made, because the colonies were very ununified at this point in time. And he basically says, well, we're either going to all hang separately or we're going to all hang together. So, and he's always been pushing, of course, for unification. And Congress will eventually, because they found out in September 1775 that they were going to be, their heads were on the block. And they finally start to make this push toward independence in mid-1776. So here are some advantages. We need to know this. Here are the factors, and here are some advantages of Great Britain and the colonies. Great Britain had 12 million people. we only had total 3 million over here. And this is about accurate. 1/3 were loyal to England, loyalists. 1/3 were patriots. And then there's 1/3 that didn't care. Manufacturing, Britain had the most highly developed in the world. We didn't have any. Money, richest country in the world. We had no money. Army, largest well-trained army in the world. Plus, they hired out Hessians, German soldiers, mercenaries, and our colonists were scared of them in the early days. We had poorly equipped volunteers and farmers. Leaders, this is the one thing that Britain didn't have that really hurt them. They didn't have good leadership in this period of time. They were in a lull in their culture and their civilization. But look at us. We had dedicated officers, just young, and well, some of them not young, but we had dedicated officers, and they were willing to learn and all that good stuff. Geography, that was colonist as well. Britain has the world's largest navy. We have none. We had 8 ships, I believe. And willing to fight, well-trained soldiers, but they had no heart in the fight because they're just coming over here for a paycheck. We patriots were defending their homeland, and they had motive to fight. If they lost, they died. That simple. So the American Revolution, as you see, Continental Army appoints George Washington as general. It was between him and John Hancock. So as you see, 1775, you get Lexington and Concord being the first battle, and almost a year before the Declaration of Independence was signed. And 1777 is the turning point in the war, Saratoga. This is where the Patriots gained French help. And the final battle of the war, the last major battle of the war, Yorktown in 1781. 1783, the Treaty of Paris is signed and we're formally recognized as an independent nation. I do like to throw this out there at you too. Submarine Warfare, that gentleman up there in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner, David Bushnell, he's the first man to use a sub in warfare, and he tried to blow up an English ship. So yes, the submarine is an American-made thing, and there it is right here. Here's the blueprints of it, and there's what it looked like. So the American ideal. We need to know this thing called egalitarianism, and it's the belief that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. This is something that is not always perfect in the U.S., but it has guided us from the inception of this country during this war, as a matter of fact, because men fought from all different backgrounds against the British. The Enlightenment, your document, your Declaration of Right, your Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution all come out of the Enlightenment ideas of Locke and Rousseau. Here's some consequences of this war you need to know about as well. We win our independence. We're deeply in debt, $43 million in debt, and that's in 1781 money. Freedom from British taxation. I'd just like to throw this out there at you. British citizens' tax rate was around 20%. We actually go and fight this war because the colonists couldn't stand the high tax rate. They're only being taxed at 12.5. So we actually fight the revolution over 12.5% in taxes, and the British were paying 20. Citizens on the island were paying 20. We pay, as Americans today, roughly around 17% in taxes. So as you see, the Anglican religion would not survive because the head of the church is the king. So that religion will not be over here much longer after the revolution. France was heavily in debt, but they did regain a couple of Caribbean islands, Tobago and Senegal. The British lose their 13 colonies. Loyalists, of course, move to Canada. Voting rights will eventually expand for white men. When this nation is started, under the Articles of Confederation and even with the Constitution, you had to own land to vote and you had to be white. But that will change. That's going to change over time, and it's going to change. It's changing today. You know that. So as you see, these are some influences on American law, colonial government here, Magna Carta, Greek and Roman law, English Bill of Rights, Mayflower Compact, the Enlightenment, and common law. So make sure we know a little bit about these.